I want to recognize the importance of access to benefit sharing arrangement, ABS. There is need for ABS policy framework to be created to address the emerging crisis and ensure the vulnerable communities are not only safeguarded, but also benefit from wealth generated from the natural resources in their locality. The access and benefit sharing is one of the mechanisms emerging at the regional and international level. I hope we'll have good time to know the tools that we can use to ensure that the rights of indigenous people are being achieved through the existing mechanism, because these are the official mechanism within the international conventions and the United Nations, as well as within the regional level, that can be used to ensure that we access the benefit from our natural resources that we have been deprived of for very many years.
This is among the first big meetings which are being funded by ILC, and we are really privileged. And I'm happy for Land is Life for chipping in, and this has made it possible for all of us to be here.
I have been invited here by Land is Life to attend a regional workshop on access and benefit sharing. From there, we can see how, when we go back, how we can engage ourselves with the government and see how we can push this process to go ahead so that indigenous people, especially indigenous women, can really benefit from the ABS process.
Indigenous people are the custodian of natural resources in our country on protected areas, and the access for benefit sharing is regarding mainly the indigenous people, so that it is for me a pleasure to have been invited by Land is Life in this workshop.
Land is Life is one of the partners in this meeting, and we work in 3 pillars. One of the pillars is to strengthen grassroots operation. In this pillar, we build a long-term partnership directly with grassroots indigenous organizations to strengthen the operations and ability to protect and defend the rights and territories of these indigenous organizations. And then the second pillar is to build alliances and awareness. We forge solidarity throughout our global network of indigenous leaders, communities, and organizations to build and maintain strong connections between the grassroots causes and the world's policy makers. And the third pillar is about ILG, indigenous-led grant making, which this workshop falls under. This is whereby we provide small grants to indigenous, most vulnerable indigenous organizations. And we have a couple of our partners in this meeting.
Indigenous communities are marginalized in many, many fronts, including even accessing the funding, and even difficult to be able to convince the donors with our knowledges which are not documented, which are not known by these conventional donors. We found Land is Life to be really understanding the issues of indigenous communities.
When you want to develop a community, it is better to start by those who are very poor. Land is Life go to those people who are very poor, who are very marginalized in the society. That is a very unique for Land is Life. They have a lot of needs, but with those needs, they try to identify one need which is very, very important for them.
We are talking about self-determination in their community, so nobody is imposing on them what type of activity to carry out. So with them, we sit down and really plan and see what are their problems, what are the priorities.
What we do is a technical help. We go and discuss with them what are your problems, how can you get out of these problems, and we try to classify the solutions. The first one is this one, the second, and so on. And we take the first solution and we share the problem with the solutions to LandIsLife, and LandIsLife support the implementation of this solution. It is the self-determination of the indigenous people.
The grant that we just received are important because it's going to support the vision we have been having as a community for almost 10 years now, but we have not had such flexible and funding that really respond to our immediate issues that we would like to take forward.
We've been able to receive ILG 3 times in this organization, and for the first time we've been able to deal with the issue of women empowerment. We've been able to buy sanitary towels to young girls who have been really suffering. And second time we've been able to deal with issue with education. We've been able to build a library for our school. And the third time we've been able to facilitate culture, been able to sponsor a cultural event in the Maasai region.
Reporting as well is really simple. Given that we are new, at least with the process we've gone through in the application, we were very satisfied because it was easy and well facilitated, moderated by the regional coordinator. For the time being, I think we should be able to learn as we start reporting, but I think for the time being, everything is taken care.
The problem maybe we could have is about the language.
For African countries, despite the fact that the countries followed up the process very well, there are some countries who are still behind in terms of preparing those regulations. Because if you don't have your own laws before you go to the Nagoya, then it doesn't help. And now the fact is, after the indigenous people were discussing this particular protocol, there were very key issues. The issue of prior informed consent. When somebody comes to the community to collect some items, some medicines or plants or what, who is to give that go ahead? Who is to give the prior informed consent? Okay? How are you going to discuss together and come up with mutually agreed terms on conditions that he's collecting this particular item? So these were very critical issues when it comes to the implementation of the Nagoya Protocol.
I've been able to learn things to do with the CBD and ways in which the indigenous people can be able to negotiate on the things that are being extracted from their own land. We have also been able to learn the Nagoya Protocol, which is basically dealing with the generic materials that are being actually extracted on the indigenous people's land, which is based on issues to do with access and benefit sharing of indigenous people. And we've been able to learn several things to do with access and benefit sharing, just in regards to resource in the lands of the indigenous people. It's a very nice experience being invited by LandIsLife, be able to even interact with the various organizations, the various scholars, and being able to even get much information to be able to take back there to the community. So it's quite very good experience, and we'll continue to ask for more and more training so that we can be able to facilitate the various groups on our community.
I was talking with one of us here. He wanted the grants to go towards documentation. But
the coordinator, JEMIMAH, our relation is very cordial. She's very available. She always assists us when we have difficulties, maybe when we are applying, when we, in our reporting period. She always attends to us. We ask her questions, and she's really available. And we really appreciate that. When we send her email, even it is in the night, she will try to see how she can get back to us as fast as possible to make sure that she answers our questions.
When we were putting up our application, she was very useful in terms of trying to help us to build up the the concept of what the community is intending to do. But also, she's been a person who is easily reachable even anytime through the phone, through the email, and supportive in all the cases.
What I could suggest to Land is Life is to support more than 2 initiatives one year, because indigenous people are facing a lot of problems.
I wanted to give a proposition if the grant should be increased, maybe with time, so that it will really have a very great impact in the communities.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank Land is Life for being with us, supporting us through these various programs. And would like to say that these particular programs have really been helpful to the communities, to the young girls, and that have been able to help, the schools that have been able to help, and even in terms of improvement of the cultural practices within the land. And so we'd like to just say that we'd also like to continue to ask them to continue to support us in terms of these grants and even the frequency of these grants, so that we'll be able to facilitate more and more programs.